Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. It is November 12th, 2024. This is a meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. Madam Clerk, could we have the meeting statement, please?
Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, including the time, date, and location of the meeting. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Leticia is going to do the land acknowledgement this evening.
Thank you. We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Here.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Sachs? Here. Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Newland?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. If you'd like to join us, please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we have a number of proclamations and awards of recognition this evening. David's going to start us off, and he and I will do the first proclamation.
This is a proclamation proclaiming November Arts and Health Month. Whereas the arts encompass many forms of creative expression, such as literary, performing, and visual arts, which are used to evoke emotion, convey meaning, and provoke thought. And whereas the municipality of Princeton recognizes the vital importance of promoting the health and well-being of its citizens, as well as fostering a deep appreciation for the arts. And whereas roughly 28% of people living in New Jersey suffer from anxiety, depression, or a combination of the two. And whereas research has demonstrated that engaging in arts-related activities can reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, and stress by 73%. And whereas individuals with regular exposure to the arts have a higher likelihood of reporting better overall health compared to those with limited or no engagement. And whereas the intersection of arts and health has been shown to have positive effects on mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And
whereas an Arts and Health Month supported by the municipality raises awareness of the divide between high and low income areas and supports those local organizations such as the Arts Council of Princeton, Art Against Racism, Princeton Public Library, Princeton University Art Museum, Morven Museum and Garden, Princeton University Concerts, Princeton Symphony Orchestra, Westrick Music Academy, Grounds for Sculpture, and West Windsor Arts by providing free and low-cost arts programs to individuals across Princeton. And whereas low-income communities are better empowered to explore the connections between artistic expression and health outcomes. And whereas by designating November as Arts and Health Month, individuals will be encouraged to engage in creative activities that lead to improved health, stress reduction, enhanced social connections, and increased self-expression. Now therefore be it proclaimed, I, Mark Frida, Mayor of the Municipality of Princeton, and the Council of Princeton, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim November 2024 as Arts and Health Month in Princeton. So I'd like to thank Adam from the Arts Council who brought it to our attention to please do this. So, hey, you know, Adam, I think you should be the recipient of the proclamation. That Leighton's going to take us through.
Mark, before I do, I just want to recognize the outstanding job that everyone does through Arts and Health in Princeton, and a shout out to Adam and his crew at the Arts Council. Thank you for all you do. I am pleased to read this proclamation from the Office of the Mayor, Municipality of Princeton, proclamation recognizing our own Leah Kahn. Whereas Leah Kahn grew up in Princeton and graduated from Princeton High School, she earned bachelor's degrees in English and philosophy from C.W. Post College and a master's degree in journalism from the University of Georgia. And whereas she wrote for newspapers in Georgia and South Carolina before returning home to Princeton and working for the Packet Group, and whereas Leah has covered Lawrence Township for the Lawrence Ledger from 1985 to the present, and whereas Leah began covering Princeton for the Princeton Packet in 2019 and can be found, as she is right now, sitting in the front row at every Princeton Council meeting. And whereas she has won 13 awards from the New Jersey Press Association, including 5 awards for coverage of government. And whereas she is dedicated to the craft of community journalism and strives to ensure that the reporting of meetings and events is fair and accurate. And whereas Leah constantly demonstrates unwavering commitment to her work, ensuring that every story is reported with accuracy and integrity and approaches every assignment with a fair and balanced perspective, reflecting her deep commitment to journalistic ethics. And whereas her quiet demeanor belies a fierce dedication to the truth, earning her the respect and trust of the community that she serves. And whereas Leah's low-key and unassuming nature allows her to connect authentically with those she serves, fostering a sense of trust and openness. And whereas Leah's steadfast presence in our local media landscape enriches the community, making her a valued and respected voice in Princeton, New Jersey. And now, therefore, I, speaking on behalf of Mayor Mark Frieda, Mayor of the Municipality of Princeton, and the Council of Princeton, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, hereby recognize and congratulate Leah Kahn for her outstanding accomplishments and extend our deepest appreciation for all her dedicated work and wish her well in all her future endeavors. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the mayor and council. It's one thing to be acknowledged by your peers in the New Jersey Press Association, and it's quite another to be honored, recognized by the people that you cover. I also just wanted to add to paraphrase Mark Twain, reports of my retirement are greatly exaggerated. I'll be here in 2 weeks, sitting right there. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 awards of recognition tonight, and TD Bank is first up. So please, gentlemen, come up and.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Chief. My name is Greg Branch. I'm the Vice President of Physical Security at TD Bank. And I'm accompanied by Mr. Ray Casanova. He's the Regional Security Contact for this area. We're here tonight. It's a pleasure for us to be here tonight to honor one of Princeton's finest, Detective Dan Shitrin. Dan, come on up here. You can't stand in the back. Back in July, it was a very quiet, beautiful Sunday. I happened to be visiting my mother about 20 miles south of here. One of our banks here on State Road was robbed. It was a takeover bank robbery. And about $60,000 was stolen from that bank. But more importantly, the few employees that we had in the store that day were just rattled beyond belief, as you can understand. Princeton PD responded. They did a great job. And Dan and several other officers came inside. I'm a retired FBI agent. Ray is a retired detective out of Galloway Township. And so I've been to hundreds of bank robberies. And I'm not just saying this because we're giving him an award, but I've also had the opportunity to go to other banks when they have been hit. And it doesn't happen the way it happened here. He was meticulous with his interviews, the patience that he showed to the victim teller and others. And I stayed until the very end, just until the bank closed. And I'll be honest with you, I was getting hungry. He was that detailed. He had really, literally nothing to go on this case. I kind of looked at the evidence, we talked. And it's limited as to what he could tell me, because I'm a civilian, he's a law enforcement officer. But what I could see, he had very little to go on. And in a matter of weeks, he had this case. I would check in with him to make sure he had everything that Ray provided to him and that we could give him pictures, video. And I remember one time I called him towards the end, and I guess I called him around 11. And he had been up since 4 doing whatever he was doing to bring this case to conclusion. And he said, Greg, I'll give you a call when this is over. And I just put my hands up, and Ray and I talked, and I said, man, he's got this thing. It's over. And sure enough, he executed the arrest. And so this award that we're giving, this is a new award from TD Bank, from the Global Security and Investigations Unit at the bank. We've only given it out once. We gave it out once last year. And this is the first award, the year is almost over, that we've given it. And Dan is just so deserving. And again, I want to commend the department, because some of these guys were probably there. I remember you being there. And Chief, you should know they were first class. So on behalf of everyone at TD, our CEO, Leo Simon, we want to thank Dan, and we congratulate him, and we'd like to present him with this award.
Can I say a few words?
Yeah, please.
Obviously, what Greg said was a gross overstatement. If I had him in a room, he would change his story. However, Greg and Ray are very special people. Without their communication with me, with the questions that came into my head, on an instant, I could send a text message and get a response. And I think without their ability to communicate effortlessly with me, there's some things that may have gone unnoticed. But 2 former law enforcement officers working with a current law enforcement officer, we were able to put our heads together, figure things out the way you're supposed to get done. And I had the backing of the Princeton Police Department the entire way. So I know Chief Tash would check in periodically with me about the case and where it was going, but he allowed me to run with my own leads, which I truly appreciate. And I think that was able to lead us to this arrest of this person who committed the bank robbery. So again, it's not me. I'm just a peg in the wheel. It's every member of the PD who was there from the start to the end. But special consideration to Ray Casanova and Greg Branch for their exceptional work from the private side. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Did you get the pictures you need, or do you need to take? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here for that. Okay, Michelle, I think you're up next.
Thank you. Thank you. So tonight we have an award, a recognition for Share My Meals. Their founder, Isabel Lombard. I first met her back in January of 2020, and she told me all about her new nonprofit organization that she was starting, a food recovery program that would address food insecurity in our Princeton community. I thought, wow, this is wonderful. But I wondered, if the logistics, if they would work out. But boy, was I wrong, and she exceeded her own expectations. So barely off the ground in early 2020, COVID hit, and Isabel and her small group of dedicated volunteers pivoted, taking advantage of New Jersey's Sustain and Serve program to buy meals at cost from local restaurants and provide them to families and seniors in need. The board and volunteers worked tirelessly to deliver 140,000 meals throughout the region during COVID. They partnered with many of our local restaurants, including Mezzaluna, the Meeting House, Gritalia Group, and JM Group of restaurants. The program served both to help address the growing food insecurity in our community and also help keep employees paid and business doors open. So as people then began to return to work, Share My Meals and Isabel and her leadership pivoted once again and was able to return to its original mission of recovering surplus meals known as their Meal Recovery Program and deliver those meals to households as well as community partners in the region. They recover and distribute surplus meals from cafeterias of local corporations, schools, universities, hotels, and restaurants and deliver them to food insecure members of our local community. And it's astounding. In 2024, they have so far delivered 100,000 meals and are on track to deliver 125,000. And they serve 2,000 people weekly through 25 community partners and directly to 60 families and 20 seniors. They mobilized 200 active volunteers from the Princeton community. And last year alone, they saved 83,000 pounds of food from being wasted. But Isabel and her team didn't stop there. They co-founded the statewide Meal Recovery Coalition, an organization that works at the state level, bringing together service groups focused on tackling food insecurity and the environmental impact of food waste across New Jersey. The Meal Recovery Coalition's goal is to recover 500,000 meals annually by 2026, which is a huge target, but one I have no doubt can be achieved given the enormous leadership and vision that Isabel and her board of directors at Share My Meals all have. It's really an honor to recognize Isabel Lambat, the founder and chair of Share My Meals. I know that there are other additional talented board members, volunteers, and staff that all work tirelessly to make this organization the success it is for our community. And with Isabel's vision, there has been no obstacle they haven't worked to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle, Isabel, I also wanted to say a few words. Isabel? I don't know if you could, no, over here, Leticia over here. Hi.
Okay.
No,
So
I just wanted to
it's
say
kind
a
of
few
a big
words.
family.
I want to
So-
say a few words as well, because I don't, I was actually trying to refresh my mind when you and I first met. It was actually in late 2019 when you first came, reached out. I found the
Bluebirds.
initial email.
Yes.
When you first reached out to discuss your initiative, and I said at the time it was to avoid food waste. And we connected, we met with our human services director and our health officer to discuss some guidelines on how to comply with food regulations and collection and distribution of donated food, how to safely collect and donate. But at the time, like I said, it was just, the focus was on how to avoid food waste. Who knew about COVID, like Michelle mentioned. And when COVID hit, that's when in our community, many of our residents who had never experienced food insecurity, it became an issue. And you had started, you were already there and ready to address the issue of food insecurity in our community. And look at you now. You have really come a long way, and we truly appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very honored and very touched because I'm in the moment of my life. I'm going back to Europe. So Karen, who is here, is going to take the leadership of Share My Meals. I will remain in the board and still have crazy ideas. So don't worry for the township. But I really want to say that from the very beginning, you supported us. And when I say us, it's obviously not Share My Meals and the board, it's really the community. And I will not talk about numbers or achievement because they will change tomorrow. And we are in an exponential growth, so the numbers don't mean anything. What I really want to say is that when you invite people at your home and you really want to do a big dinner and a special event you need a good recipe, you need the good ingredients, and a glass of wine. And so the recipe is definitely the vision, and there is nothing we have to discuss about that. I think it makes sense, food waste and food insecurity. This is no way. Ingredients, it's really you, my team. I mean, just tonight, it's just her, but she's representing. And when I say my team, it's the team that we were able to attract because we were doing something that made sense. And it could be volunteers, but when I talk about the ingredient, it's also the non-profit organization we are working with, because it's not about us, it's really about what we can do together. And the glass of wine, I would say, is the joy that I want to instill in this organization, because I think we have it's art and very difficult issue that we are dealing with, but it has to be made in a very joyful atmosphere. Otherwise, nobody would like to come to work. So thank you very much. I'm very honored, and I will still be there. And I hope you will still support us. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lot of movement in this thing.
Okay, next up on the agenda are announcements. Any members of council have any announcements or reports? Eve?
I just want to, I have a real announcement, but I just want to say something first in the wake of Tuesday's election. Although I'm stepping off council at the end of the year, I know that my colleagues will do everything in their power to protect the rights of vulnerable people in our community and to fight for what is good and just. Just felt like I couldn't let this moment pass without saying something. So my more official announcement is that this Friday at 2:30 we have a ribbon cutting for the 153-acre parcel that we acquired in 2021. It's at the intersection of Province Line and Stroud Lane, and you can park on Stroud. There'll be a hike after, led by the Ridgeview Turtles, which is a student group that works on some of our open space areas. And so if you're available, please join us. Thanks.
Thank you. Other council announcements or reports? Okay. Seeing none, let's jump to the, I'm sorry, I missed that. Go ahead.
My apologies. Yeah, I just want to, I'm happy to announce that the Princeton Housing Authority has opened one classroom at Reading Circle as part of the Princeton Public Schools Universal Full-Day Preschool Program. They anticipate the second classroom at the Henry F. Bunnell Center to be opening within the next month. So really happy that they have, want to also acknowledge the work that our engineering department, Deanna, Jim, and their team has acknowledged their help that they have given them to achieve this monumental situation that they've been able to achieve. So we have pre-classrooms at one of our locations, and we'll be having another pre-classroom at another location. So hats off to the staff and the board of the Princeton Housing Authority. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leighton. All right, let's go to the police department's monthly report for September. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just two things. One, I wanted to congratulate Leah Kahn again and say thank you. She's always been a strong supporter of the police department for as long as I can remember, so thank you for that. One thing I wanted to note on the September Chief's monthly report is our crash data. We've recognized that the crashes for this year have increased, especially involving pedestrians and motorists or bicyclists. We're working, our traffic department is working to identify the areas where these are happening, and we're looking into it and doing a education and enforcement campaign to try to drive those numbers back down. Like I said, we do recognize it's nationwide the accident has gone up, but we're going to do our part to make, try to drive those numbers down here in Princeton. That's the only thing I wanted to mention, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions on the monthly report? Okay, seeing none, I'd ask Isaac Kremer from Experience Princeton to come up and update us on what's happening.
Good evening, Your Honor. Typical format, 4 things we did last month, 4 this month, and one big thing you need to know about at the end. So last month, we sent out the Princeton Monthly e-blast that had over 4,234 sends, 2,123 opens. And I want to highlight we featured over 177 businesses and organizations across the 25 e-blasts that we've sent out over the past 2 years and now start of our 3rd. So that's become a really useful tool for us. Secondly, we're continuing the work on allowable uses. We especially want to thank staff who met with the consultant that we're working with, and we're looking forward to wrapping up the stakeholder interviews hopefully this month. Additionally, we've registered a booth for 2 people to attend the International Council of Shopping Centers Deal Show at Javits in New York from December 11th to 12th. It's going to be a great visibility opportunity for us. I believe we're the only municipality in New Jersey that will be represented at that show. And lastly, we're pleased to announce that we've launched the Princeton 250 page on the Experience Princeton website. This was done with some funding from Mercer County and also supported the Princeton Heritage Tourism Committee. There you'll see events related to the lead up, and then of course the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 2026. But we've gotten our start, and you can go to experienceprinceton.org/Princeton250 to see that. So what are we doing this month? We've launched the Shop Local to Win sweepstakes, and I'm pleased to report we've already awarded $2,000 over 2 weeks. Week 1, the winner was Cosmo Blue Salon, who was really happy to have been selected, and their customer Michelle Meyer Ship. So each of them will receive $500. And I just found out today with a drawing and notified Witherspoon Grill and also James Diorio, who are also going to get $500 apiece. And we have 4 more weeks to go, and another $4,000 to give away, then a grand prize at the end of $1,500. So we really hope that the word gets out and people go shopping and support local businesses, upload the receipts, and have a chance to win. Next up, our holiday decorations are going to continue and be expanded this year. And also our Shop Local banners are getting ready to install, hopefully right before Thanksgiving. And of course, we'll coordinate with that. And the volunteer recognition event is going to be held on November 21st from 4 to 7 at Morven. This will also serve as our holiday party. RSVPs are required and can be done through our website. Space is filling up quickly. Certainly, we'd love to see all of our colleagues with the municipality, mayor and council to be present if you're able to. And last but not least, we're seeking services of an IT contractor to provide ongoing support for Experience Princeton. The RFP will go out shortly. So to wrap it up, one big thing that you should know about is we've had a total of 33 business openings that we've documented in Princeton since October 2022, when Experience Princeton started. And while we can't take credit for all of them or even many of them, we have contributed to making Princeton a better place for businesses to locate. We're excited to have 10 more business openings coming up that we know of. And most immediately, Alfalfa will be opening their Princeton location at 140 Nassau Street. And their ribbon cutting will be on Friday, December 6th at 10 a.m. Everyone's welcome to attend. I personally visited their location in Hackensack and can tell you I think it's a perfect fit for Princeton. Taste and interest, very healthy lifestyle, gluten-free options. It's just one of those wonderful businesses that you're proud to have part of your town. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Isaac. Any questions for Isaac? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you finding time to be here with us. Next up on the agenda, public comments for items not on the agenda. So if anybody in the room or anybody on Zoom wants to make a comment or say something about, again, an item that's not on the agenda, this would be the time to come up forward. Nobody in the room? Nobody on Zoom? Oh, hand went up on Zoom. 2 hands, okay. Oh, 3 hands. Wow, it's contagious. Okay. Anna?
Hello.
just-
Are y'all able to hear me okay?
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, just, I'm sorry,
I-
just if you just give us your name and your address, and then you have 3 minutes for whatever the topic is. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. My name is Anna Convica. I am a resident at 18 Bank Street. And I would like to express my concerns about the vote held at the meeting last week regarding the demolition of the flyer kiosks on Nassau. I believe that these are spaces that have great cultural importance for our community, and I'm extremely concerned that this decision was made without sufficient space for input from the community. I believe that the concerns expressed by the council members that these kiosks are ugly, or to use the words from the last meeting, eyesores, is a subjective and aesthetic choice, and one that does not necessarily reflect the beliefs of your constituency, as evidenced by the fact that this debate has been ongoing for at least a decade and has received significant public input and backlash. So whether or not these kiosks are ugly is subjective, and it's one that I personally disagree with, because I think that these are important cultural spaces that have been used for community expression and free speech. And I guess I'd like to conclude with a quote from Eve Niedergang from the last meeting, in which she said, "I think they're hideously ugly, and I would love to move to a digital display. The digital display is then under our control and ceases to be a place for the community to interact." And I hope that the council will take under consideration the concerns that I have with this belief that these important cultural spaces are going to be removed in favor of government control over what is going to be expressed. And that concludes my comment.
Anna, thank you very much. Okay, Adam, could we bring in the next person?
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good evening. My name's Kira Gusios. I am a resident of 18 Bank Street. I'm also here to express my objection to the recent vote regarding the removal of the flyer kiosks on Nassau Street. I would also like to emphasize that these kiosks play a vital role in our community as an expression of free speech and community organization, and the removal would be a significant loss for many residents. Secondly, I think that basing the removal of these kiosks based on aesthetic judgments that aren't reflective of the broader community is an issue, and claims regarding that the kiosks have an environmental impact and pedestrian obstruction lack substantiations, especially if these kiosks are replaced with electronic signs. I think we need to consider the broader implications of placing giant electronic advertisements in the middle of a street. I think there are many potential environmental issues with this and threats to pedestrian and driver safety that haven't really been considered. What troubles me a lot about this decision is that there has been a lack of community input leading up to the vote. The vote seemed to have been conducted with minimal notice and without regard to public opinion, and ironically, this should highlight some of the issues that residents would face if the kiosks were removed. I believe that the kiosks are an important and integral part of Princeton's cultural landscape. And in theme with today's proclamation concerning arts and mental health, I think that the kiosks serve as a pretty visible intersection of art, freedom of expression, and community engagement that is necessary for a thriving Princeton. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Kira.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Hunter Akridge, and I'm a concerned resident of Princeton, 311 Court Drive. I'm also against a kiosk removal on Nassau Street, and would like to implore the City Council to reconsider their position. I'd like to echo the previous two comments and emphasize that in my view, this is a waste of city resources. I want to address a couple of issues raised specifically in favor of kiosk removal. One, Princeton's Traffic and Transportation Committee back in 2013 found that these kiosks pose no threat to traffic and pedestrian flow. And as a regular pedestrian on Nassau Street, I find that they don't obstruct my pedestrian traffic. I've never seen this become an issue on the street. And two, the removal and replacing of these kiosks with electronic screens likely will have a deeply negative environmental impact. I would like to see sort of a data-driven impact evaluation for the decision-making process here. It seems like the process so far has been centered around various sorts of aesthetic judgments without bringing in community input or doing substantive evaluations of the argument claims being made here. So yeah, I'd implore the city council to reconsider their position, do more digging into the substance behind the claims being advanced here, and lastly, provide a timeline for what the demolition looks like. As a resident who believes that these are a vital part of our community, I'd like to know, at the very least, when the demolition is supposed to happen, and the timeline going forward. Thank you. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, Hunter.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Lucas Fry. I'm at 600 Hibben Maggie Road. I would also like to urge the council to reverse its decision to direct the removal of the kiosks. I think that it's a little bit silly that this just sort of came in a work session without prior announcement. After this is an issue that's generated serious pushback in the community every other time that the Chamber of Commerce, whoever's asked for them to be removed, 2013, 2017, 2021, to just sort of issue it in a direction, related to streetscape, which had a community input period that has already passed, and which a lot of the drawings for show the kiosks as they are. I think this was done without sufficient community input, and I think it's something that you're going to see a lot of people upset about, that the council is acting this way in a way that doesn't seem to follow democratic procedure. Furthermore, the kiosks, as people expressed in the previous times that people have talked about changing them, these are like a vibrant community space where people can interact with without having to necessarily negotiate with whatever the restrictions of local business bulletin boards or university spaces. This is sort of open for everybody. And we don't even have a plan from y'all about what the replacement, if there is one, will be. And so to remove them without that plan seems ill-advised and premature. I certainly don't want, local kids trying to advertise for, a band they want to start to have to go through, local government permitting or have to ask whoever we've leased the kiosk to for permission. So thank you, and I urge you to reverse the directions to the engineering department about that.
Lucas, thank you. All right. Anybody else on Zoom? Anybody else in the room? Okay, we'll close the public comment part of the agenda. And now we have a presentation on the Harrison Street corridor. So
just to give a
Okay.
little
Yeah, please.
background and introduction, in February 2023, Princeton Council approved a professional service agreement with Michael Baker to conduct a multimodal corridor study along Harrison Street and Ewing Street from our southern border all the way to the connection at US Route 206. Joining us tonight are Pete Kramer and Tom DiBiase from Michael Baker to present a summary of the recommendations that are included in the report that we distributed to council yesterday.
Great, thank you. So volume's okay?
Please.
All right, great. So actually, we just start by looking at the diagram. You see that thin red line? That's the corridor starting at the canal towpath on the bottom right and going all the way up to the intersection of the designation actually changes towards the end to, it's called Ewing Street. So Ewing Street at US 206. It's about a 2.5-mile corridor. And as Deanna mentioned, we did provide a detailed report, and I believe that you all have that. So, I'm just going to, I know you guys are busy, want to go through this pretty quickly, give you the highlights, and then if you have any other questions, or you can reach out to us later as well. I'm going to talk quickly about the project purpose, the study findings that led us into our design options, give you a quick summary of the recommendations and the timeline, and take your questions and comments. And from the very beginning, the purpose of the project was stressed that it was really about safety, not so much moving traffic. We do need to move traffic, but we need to do that safely as well. We heard from the police, the chief of police today. I was a little surprised to hear the increase in pedestrian and cyclist crashes. And a lot of reasons for that, but what we do is focus on the cause and try to make recommendations to address those problems. We always start with this slide here. This picture kind of tells the whole story. People say, why do we need to slow down traffic? Why do we need to do these things? If you look at the bottom, so if a car is driving at 40 miles an hour and there's a collision with a pedestrian, there's an 80% chance that the pedestrian will be killed by that collision. And this is from national data. The number kind of varies from year to year, but these are the, the general numbers. If you're able to slow that to 30 or 20 miles an hour, so at 20 miles an hour, there's only a 10% chance of fatality. So the kinetic energy behind a moving vehicle, especially the vehicles that we have today, big trucks, SUVs, they weigh a lot more than the cars that we drove when we were younger, and they're much more advanced. Bodies haven't changed. Cars have become better. It's much safer to be in a car, and it's a lot less safe to be outside of a car. So we always start with this figure to kind of stress why we do this. So overall, what we did, these are some of our findings in the existing conditions. We looked at the crash data. Again, the chief of police mentioned that. We looked at 5 years of crash data. Typically, we look at 3 to 5 years. We don't isolate on any one year. Trends can happen, things can change, weather, COVID. But if we look at a long enough period, we get a good picture of the distribution of the types of crashes, where they occur, and that sort of thing. So there were a total of 249 crashes in that 2.5-mile corridor, and that was about 7% of all the crashes in that 5-year period in Princeton, which is very significant for one street. What we do is also a hotspot map, so we look at where the crashes are more frequent and more severe, and those locations were Nassau Street, Valley Road, 206, Hartley Avenue and Lake Avenue. And we have improvements at all those locations with the exception of Nassau Street. As you know, that's the state highway. The state has jurisdiction of that location. We did look at that. We didn't really see too much that could be done there on our end. And the state has done some improvements recently, and I believe there's some other improvements coming there. But all the other locations is where we focused our improvements, and you'll see as we go through that. We also collect traffic data. The volumes were about 12,000 to 14,000 per day. That's pretty high, but it's very consistent with a 2-lane roadway, 1 lane in each direction. And that kind of cross-section can very comfortably handle that kind of traffic, so it's not really an excessive amount of traffic. We also look at intersection performance. There's a metric called the level of service. It's a kind of a statistical analysis of capacity and demand. And basically, if you look in the report, you'll see the numbers, but it really were very good. There are only a few traffic moves that have a little bit of delay, but nothing really significant. We also recorded speed data. We set up our tubes, and they record speeds of vehicles as they're traveling, throughout the day. The highest average speeds, really not surprising, at Lake Lane and Valley Road. Lake Lane, you're coming over the lake. It's almost like you're going through a tunnel. There's nothing to slow you down. Speeds are very quickly there. When you come around that last turn before the canal crossing, people really start to pick up speed. And if going the other way, you're going downhill, so it's sort of a natural, not surprising that would occur. And then at Valley Road is where the road widens out. There's really maybe some excessive capacity, and again, that's where the crashes are occurring. That's where the high speeds are. And looking at that, there's really no evidence of any kind of significant traffic problem, no really high traffic volumes, no delay or no congestion. But we did observe a lot of kind of problematic behavior, excessive speeds, aggressive driving, passing maneuvers, especially in the 4-lane cross-section. A lot of people running lights, red lights at certain locations as well. There are a lot of places in New Jersey. Tom is actually working on Easton Avenue right now in Somerset County. Excessive traffic, excessive congestion, a lot of red light running, but you can almost understand it there. You can see the cause and effect here. It's a behavioral thing, I think, as much as anything else. People losing patience, or maybe they waited at Nassau Street and they don't want to wait anymore. But the comments that Deanna and Jim passed on, a lot of the comments and questions that have been coming from people, and they noticed that as well. And we just didn't see any kind of data, cause for that. So what I'm going to do now is go through some of the high points, some of the details behind that, and then give you a little bit more data, and we have a couple diagrams as well. So as you come up to the DNR Canal Crossing from Route 1, there's a change in jurisdiction. It's West Windsor, and then it's in Princeton. The canal crossing is there as well. Mercer County has jurisdiction of the roadway there, not Princeton. We think that really multiple design options would be needed there. One thing, a narrower lane, a sign that says 25 miles an hour. One little thing doesn't do it. You really need multiple things at that location. But because of the jurisdiction being complicated, it's not just Mercer County and West Windsor, it's also the Canal Commission, so there's state jurisdiction there as well. And they believe the state owns the bridge as well, right? We looked at the age. The age of the bridge is, not a problem. So I don't see replacing it at any time soon. But you would need to do quite a lot of coordination there, and it really would need quite a few things to slow things down. I think you could probably do maybe some rumble strips or something like that, similar to, I don't know if you put them back down on Hodge, but the way Hodge used to have those rumble strips leading up to the intersections. Maybe that kind of thing might, in the short term, might do something. So there's a lot of need there, speeding, crash history, but right now the coordination is a bit of a problem. Throughout the corridor, so moving up, from Carnegie up towards Nassau, we think that about 4 intersections in the corridor could accommodate roundabout design. Tom's my civil engineer. He does the traffic assessment. This is one of his diagrams, and each time we recommend this kind of thing, we look at the roadway cross-section to make sure that the design would fit. So in each of these cases, we did determine that with some minor impacts, they could all fit. Anything would go through a detailed design to look at drainage, utility poles, that sort of thing, any impacts to right-of-way. So we think at Prospect Avenue would benefit from a roundabout, and that then we have 3 roundabouts in a row proposed for Valley Road, Terhune Road, and Bud Drive. Bud Drive especially has a very inappropriate, not appropriate to this kind of context. The right-hand turn is really a very high-speed right-hand turn, and it really encourages excessive speeds. There's a school right there.
Yeah. So, Pete, what intersection is pictured here? Is that Prospect Ave?
That's Prospect, right, Tom? Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious because you're suggesting on the slide similar designs to current roundabouts on Faculty Road in Alexander. I think those are a lot larger than the circle in this one. And
well, the Valley, Terhune, and Bunn
would be more similar to that.
Similar, yeah.
Okay.
This would be a narrower cross-section. It's bigger than the one, well, you don't own it, but at Johnson Park. So it'd be in between those two.
Okay.
So what Tom's able to do is look at the cross-section, the property lines, that sort of thing, and determine whether or not it fits. Mm-hmm. And this is, a very preliminary design, but it has a lot of the features that you would want to include in that kind of design.
Great, thanks.
Yes. Okay. Then starting at Nassau Street up towards Franklin Avenue, you have the intersection with Hamilton Avenue as well. We looked at Hamilton in very, significant detail. there's really not a way to add any capacity for left turns or lengthen the left turn lanes. We looked at the timing and phasing of the signal. There are very little, opportunities in an engineering sense to do anything there. So we have a series of traffic calming recommendations there. The roadway is a little wider than it would need to be for one travel lane, so we have a raised median traffic island similar to what you have on Hodge Road, that sort of thing, to neck things down a little bit to get people to slow down. So there are a series of traffic calming improvements recommended in that area. Then going up to the shopping center is where we recommend a road diet. And as I said before, the volumes there are really not, they're consistent with a 2-lane cross section. You really don't need 4 lanes there. I don't know exactly when it became 4 lanes. The roadway configuration changed at some point, but there was probably open land, and maybe that's why they did it. They thought they needed it. But in terms of traffic, we really don't think it's needed. So this is a cross section right now. You have, the center median island. You have the 4 lanes. We think that there's an opportunity, if we could take 2 of those lanes away, could repurpose that pavement for bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and just something that's a little bit closer to reflecting the local context. Because even though the shopping center is on one side, you have some new residential development, and everything on the southbound side, there's not a sidewalk, and it's very inconsistent with generally the residential context there. So we have a series of these cross-section diagrams. So that's the same current cross-section of the roadway in front of the shopping center. It has 4 travel lanes. There's no bicycle accommodations. I said the same wide center median that's somewhat landscaped with the trees. And there's only 1 sidewalk in a northbound direction. It's interesting that the opposite direction, the southbound, is where the houses are. A lot of them are businesses, but there are actually no sidewalks there at all. So what we would do is an interim build. So you take that existing configuration, and as I said, we can repurpose the roadway in the interim to provide the road diet, some bicycle facilities, and then a sidewalk in both directions. And as you can see, we retained the exact dimensions of that center median right now. And if you look at the top diagram and then the bottom, you basically see we've gone from 13-foot travel lanes. 13 feet is not even a highway standard. I think the interstate's highway standard is 12 feet. 13 feet is much too excessive. Plus, you have the opportunity to pass people. When you go from 1 lane in each direction to 2, people jockey for position. They pass each other. That's where the speeding comes from. That's where the safety risks come from. So we can repurpose, and this is something that the township can do on their own, take that excess 2 feet of the lanes, plus the other travel lane, and repurpose that. So on the northbound side, we can provide an interim bike facility, a planter to separate the traffic. You still have the 1 travel lane. And in the southbound side, you'd have the travel lane, the planter, a bike lane, and a sidewalk on the same grade. And that's something that could be done in the short term. And in the meantime, you could start working on the design and getting that stuff into the pipeline. So then, after the interim build is in place, again, I move that diagram up so I can show you what the final build would be. You can see that just look at that real quick again. Again, we retain the dimensions in the median. You can see the poles don't move. We've converted the interim area into a bike lane and a sidewalk that's now raised. So it's up, what is the curb height, Tom? 8 inches? Probably be 6 to 8 inches, something like that. 4 to 6, yeah. So it would be, you wouldn't have the barrier, but a vehicle. And again, the speed is actually higher here as well. So I think we lowered the speed as well. I think it goes up to 30 or 35. So the combination of those slower moving traffic, pedestrians and the cyclists on the raised area, and it's something that would really reflect the local context. And I think especially with the new residential areas and a new look of the shopping center, something that really reflects that context as opposed to, I'm on a nice residential street, it's 25 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden I'm in a highway, and it's, it doesn't reflect that context. So it's not just a design, it's really an aesthetic complement as well. If you spend any time at the shopping center, you see a lot of people on cyclists. on bikes, excuse me, going to and from the shopping center. So I think it would really accommodate that, and we provide that sidewalk on the southbound side. We talked about the 3 roundabouts. They would look similar to that other design, but it's a larger cross-section. Yes, David?
Yeah, I'm sorry, if you could go back one slide. I just had a question. In the interim solve, you have a bidirectional bike lane on the shopping center side of the
It's just
road.
because
and-
there's more room there. You know, you could have a 12-foot bike lane in one direction, or it could be anything. You could have a wider median. You could have a 10-foot bike lane.
Yeah.
But you have basically, if we go back to the original, so let's see, we've got 13 and a half, 15 and a half feet plus the barrier 1.5. So you have about 17 feet to work with. It's a question. The key is you keep the curb so there's no cost to changing that, and you just repurpose that area.
Yeah.
The median could be as big as you want. The bike lane could be as big as you want.
Yeah, I mean, my question was really why you didn't keep the bidirectional in the permanent build, because it looks like you've got a ton of space for pedestrians, more than you really need. And
it could be anything. It's a concept.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So
it may
just
be we did so many different versions. The key is that it's there. It could be used differently. It could be safer. It could be more reflective of the context. And if you really wanted it, it would work because you already have a sidewalk.
Yeah.
It just seemed to make sense to have one in each direction. And it's not super long as well, as you'll see. I have another diagram for the bike network.
Right.
Right. That'll
Yeah.
be something that we'll have to look at for connectivity.
Exactly.
At
Yeah.
either end, and if it makes sense to have a bidirectional system for a short area and then have to transition it to, monodirection on each side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes complicated at the intersections. I don't know if you've ridden the protected bike lanes in New York, you think you're perfectly safe, and then all of a sudden you come to an intersection, and you're like, where are the cars coming from? And
Yeah.
it's the new MUTCD, the design guidance that we have, is very stringent about right turns across bike lanes. So it might be easier jurisdictionally to do that. But the key is, what do you got now? What's wrong? What do we have to work with? And what kind of things we could do? We know we have that, say, 17 feet, plus or minus. We could do a lot.
Great.
But I think Deanna's point is that when you get to the intersections, what do? And even the bikes could be crossing each other. So
Yeah.
it could be.
I appreciate the complexity,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to make the point that I think there may be a desire for the bidirectional lanes just because of my perception of how traffic flows in
Yeah.
front of the shopping center, which is the area where we have the extra
Right.
space. We have people coming on Valley Road on their bicycles who may want to get to the south, but
Right.
they want to cross safely there because the next opportunity to cross safely, is
Yeah.
where Franklin, so I think that I'm not saying it's the answer, but I'm putting in a plug for trying to keep
Right.
the bidirectional bike lane on that
Oh,
side.
sure. And I think when the rear connection to the shopping center opens to Terhune, and you have a bike lane there, and you have some of the other local connections, you can reevaluate again, because we don't, the timing of how all the little pieces come together could influence that. But most of the cyclists that I've seen do come up Valley, so you'd be going through that spot. Yeah, so. Okay, now we talked about the new traffic signal, Ewing Street at 206. We did an engineering evaluation. It is a high crash location. There are a lot of unsafe and illegal moves. People, despite what you see every day, the shoulder is not a passing lane. It's not just recommended. It's illegal. I know people have gotten tickets for that. It's illegal for a very good reason. There are utility poles right there. You actually see in the diagram where the shoulder widens out there a little bit. and people think maybe it's a good idea, but it's really not a good idea. It would need, engineering evaluation in terms of site distance, but it meets what we call the signal warrants, which is a numerical analysis. There are 8 or 12 different tests, and if you meet certain criteria, then it's just a traffic signal can be justified. I think it also would give a little bit of relief. The Cherry Hill traffic signal at 206, just north of here, is really constrained. I did a previous study for the township there. This would give you a safe, regulated, controlled way to make that turn, that left turn. Left turns onto 206 from anywhere can be problematic. So I think it has that potential to prove it. But like at the canal crossing, the DOT jurisdiction is an issue. Money is always a problem. But we think at least in terms of demand, the warrants, does it fit? Does it work? We think that is definitely true. Also, we have a series of corridor-wide improvements. You see this little diagram on the right. Federal Highway Administration has a program called the Proven Safety Countermeasures. It's a series of, it keeps growing. It used to be 16, now it's 28 or 30. These are different things: lighting, speed management, different type of intersection treatments, improvements for pedestrians and cyclists that are statistically proven by looking at historical crash data. And for each one of these, and if you look in our report, there's this CMF thing, that's the crash modification factor. And it's demonstrated that lighting will give you X% reduction in crashes over time. So all the things that we recommended are from this list. And in each case, we didn't just pick things out of thin air. We demonstrated that, there's a statistical or proven benefit to those. So you can, refer to that as well. And then the last thing is the existing bicycle network. So there are a lot of lines on this map, but basically the purple lines are primarily what the bicycle network is right now. So Wiggins, Nassau Street, Prospect Avenue have those shared lane markings. Nobody knows what they mean. Nobody knows how to use them. I sometimes am not sure myself. It's the problem, next to the no right turn on red and don't use the shoulder as a passing lane. That's probably the most unknown, unadhered to thing. I really don't think it provides.
There's one thing that's
benefit.
even less known, which is bike boulevards.
Bike boulevard, yeah. But it's a little clearer, I think. So anyways, also the shared lanes are supposed to be traffic calmed. They're supposed to be traffic calmed. They're supposed to be limited to 25 miles an hour, and they were never intended to be a network. At some point, people thought, oh, let's just have these networks of sharrows, and now these little symbols are all over the place, and they really don't provide a lot of benefit. So point being, that's what you have right now. You can see the canal all the way at the bottom. The brown line is pretty much isolated because of you have to cross the bridge. And there is the bike boulevard design. The bike boulevard does have some traffic calming built into it, and the signs are a little bit clearer. So right now, like I said, you have the shared lane markings and you have the bike boulevards mostly around the shopping center area. It's sort of disconnected and doesn't really provide a lot of connectivity, and it doesn't provide all the research, all the surveys we do, all the people we talk to. They want to have separation from traffic. And you can only do that if you have really a wide road or you can go off-road. So it's very limited in our ability to provide that. Part of the study, we created an enhanced bicycle network. So you can see the on-street bike lanes on Harrison Street by the shopping center. You can see we have a connection using Broadmead Avenue, turning Prospect into a bicycle boulevard. Wiggins is proposed for bike lanes. So you can see it's become, if you compare the two, that's much more robust and interconnected network. It's not perfect. The opportunity to provide the protected, separated facilities is still pretty limited, but it would really be much better. And it would, part of the road diet and the things that are happening at the shopping center there's that small section on Terhune Road. And I think there's something, didn't you guys have something recently on Terhune? Yeah. And that's part of the point, is that this is what we've got right now, but things are always coming online that enhance that. So that's the bicycle network. That's also discussed in detail in the memo. So overall, these are the things that we talked about: enhancing the canal crossing, traffic calming at various locations. I mentioned the limited options at Hamilton Avenue, converting a series of intersections to roundabouts, the road diet at the shopping center, the new signal at 206, and the PROS bicycle network. Really, Harrison Street is a little narrow to have bike lanes on it. A lot of trucks. The curb really limits, technically if you have a curb, a bike lane is supposed to be a minimum of 5 feet. And if you have 30 feet, that leaves 10-foot lanes. You have buses and big trucks on Harrison Street, so the encroachment factor can be significant. I personally don't find it very fun to do that, and I go up Broadmead Avenue. It's a nice, quiet little boulevard. There's not a lot of traffic. It's not as direct, but I'd much rather, it's scenic, I feel comfortable there. So I think it's a big factor for a lot of people. We also designed, not for me or the experienced cyclists, we really designed for families, people that are less experienced, people that don't want to spin their head around all the time seeing where the traffic is. That's another factor. And that's why we stay away from certain places in terms of the recommendations.
Sure. Can you comment at all about how this bike network that you just showed compares to the bike network that was envisioned in the bike mobility plan that you actually worked on?
In some of the recommendations, we did recommend a bike lane on Wiggins, but I think we also said that it had to be a little wider. I think I'd have to go back. I know we talked about the road diet in the bike plan. I had never thought of Broadmead before. Mm-hmm. We did talk about Prospect as a significant, gateway. I know that the university's doing work there, so that fits in with that.
Yeah.
But there's also, I walk around Princeton all the time. There are dozens of buildings that are just gone up. I mean, it doesn't look anything like it did 5 years ago. And there's a brand new campus on the other side of the river. So some of the things have moved forward, but I think that the clay we're working with has changed under our feet.
Right.
And so, I think that a lot of people, when they come to Princeton, they think, oh, I'm just going to park on Witherspoon Street. Like they did 30 years ago, or at Palmer Square, and it just doesn't work. You have to, evolve your habits with that. And the other thing we talked about
questions now?
was, I'm just about
asking questions now.
Yeah,
please jump in.
Yeah.
Sure, Mia.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, did you just say that you don't think that Harrison Street is wide enough to have bike lanes?
Harrison Street, south of Nassau, Numerically, I don't.
South of Nassau.
South of Nassau. Plus, you have several places where there's on-street parking, which make it narrower. There were a disproportionately high number of dooring crashes of struck parked cars. And there are several places where there are left turn lanes, plus the left turn lanes at Nassau Street, and the problem of you have a bike lane, you get there, and there's no place to put the bike. And the new guidance in terms of
So if we
bike
could
lanes
just,
with right turns.
for tonight, because this, council had very little time to review this in advance.
Yeah.
We haven't actually read through it, and I'm not even really clear on what is being presented and what we're being, I thought this was about the putting bike lanes on Harrison, basically from Terhune to Nassau. I thought that was the focus.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other stuff in here.
Right. Well, I think what
Can
I
you
tried
just
to
like
do.
put in a context for us what exactly it is, what this is even that we're seeing tonight?
We have a very detailed report that's got a lot of information, a lot of numbers. So what I tried to do was give you sort of a big picture flavor for that. We don't expect an answer tonight. Ideally, you would, and I think you have the slides. I would read through the report, make your notes. You can get us questions. You can call me. But remember this, it's all conceptual as well. It's not designed, but that's why Tom is on the team to confirm that things fit and don't fit.
But what's the objective?
The objective was, as we said in the beginning, to make Harrison Street a safer corridor, reduce crashes. To do that, we need to reduce speeds. We need to pull pedestrians and cyclists away from moving traffic, heavy trucks, buses, people making illegal, unsafe maneuvers that contribute to crashes, that contribute to higher speeds. So overall, the goal was to make it a safer corridor.
Yeah, I think part of the question tonight is, what is the objective of tonight, which I see as being, this is introducing this to the governing body and to the public, that there's a more detailed study that we'll make available to the public, and that we have some idea of where this is going. And I imagine we'll be looking at doing some sort of work session on this, because there's a lot in that report, and it might be multiple work sessions. I don't know whether we're going to try to do it in sections or all at once, but there's a lot of work yet to be done, and we might want to try to focus on certain areas that we probably would have more immediate success than trying to do this whole thing at once.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think tonight is just, oh, by the way, this is coming at you. And I think we have other groups to pull into the discussion.
So the point being, there are a lot of different recommendations. Things would move in different speeds. Some things would need coordination with others. Some things can be done by the township or the municipality in the short term and the longer term. And we're just trying to give you a flavor of what it is. There's a lot in here, a lot of numbers, and we try to make it as understandable, as possible. But we could spend 3 hours talking about this thing and show you all the little diagrams. And
your 3 hours is 5 for us, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's been a long night. Tom, did you want to add anything? No? Okay. All right. So.
Okay. Let me just run up and down the podium up here, or whatever this is called. Sorry. Eve, you want to go?
Thank you. I did have a chance to see this earlier when it was presented at INO, and I did at that point read the entire study very carefully, and I think, if I remember, had a lot of questions. I didn't have a chance to look it over that carefully. So I'm glad this is an introduction. But I have a couple of questions and a couple of points. What you started with on pedestrian and bike safety, that is it. That is what this is all about, is how do we make this vital corridor safe for people of, all different ways of getting around. And rather than have a street that, as it has been designed, serves cars with everybody else an afterthought. And, I think that's our philosophy as we look at the reconstruction of any roads in Princeton, is how do we flip that from, how do we get the car from point A to point B as quickly as possible, to how do we make sure nobody dies as the car is getting from point A to point B. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the roundabouts, which I love, but I know many people feel a little queasy about those. And do you have any data on safety enhancement if you take an intersection that has stop signs and you then put in roundabouts, or if you take an intersection that has a stoplight and then put in roundabouts? Like, what are we gaining from those? Do you have any data on that?
There is in the report those crash modification numbers for the round. I don't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure it's a 20% or more reduction.
Okay.
It's also, the benefit of the roundabout is also for several things. One is that The right-of-way is built into the design. Yield on enter. There's no question about who has the right-of-way. Also, that turning movement requires you to slow down. When you slow the speed, that goes back to that first diagram. If I can slow you down from 35 to 20, I've already dealt with a lot of the severity, crash severity. So it has, multiple benefits. Also, this is what people don't remember. Oh, I had to wait at that roundabout for 4 cars to go through. Nobody ever says that about a traffic light. You could wait, if you go up to Route 1, you could wait 3 or 4 minutes before the light turns green, and then you have a limited amount of time.
And that's if you make it through it on the first light.
Yeah. So also, when you're stopped, that traffic has to queue back. That's why many of our intersections, we have like on Wiggins at Witherspoon, it's 1 lane, it fans out to 2 lanes in most cases because you need to put a place to put those cars. It uses up capacity that could be other things. So if you have the roundabout, the delay is much longer and you can retain that 1 lane approach. So there's an aesthetic, there's a pavement improvement, there's a safety improvement, and there's the crash reduction, the speed reduction. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And if you go to that Federal Highway Administration Proving Safety Countermeasures, there's detailed explanation about that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So right now, my memory is not good about these things, but right now, if I think that the speed limit on Harrison varies from 25, like by the shopping center, I think it's 35, is that?
It's 30 or 35.
30
Yeah.
and 25. So I don't know if this is part of your plan or this is something we decide, but what would you envision the speed limit being essentially from the bridge to 206?
Well, I think we recommended that at the shopping center, it would be 25, and then 30 or maybe 35 on that Ewing portion where it's lower density. I'd have to go back and look, but it certainly doesn't need to be any higher than that.
Right.
It's the main area where you would need to slow traffic, like I said, was the bridge over the lake for that.
So, yeah,
And
I mean,
then
I'd
at the
love to
shopping
see it
center.
as slow as possible,
Yeah.
20 or 25, which leads me to another question is, as these changes are made to Harrison, the roundabouts, other steps taken to slow people down, obviously some of our drivers are, on Google Maps or Waze or whatever, they're going to look for alternatives. Is this something that you have looked at? Like, where might excess traffic go? And if you haven't looked at that yet, I don't know if that's within the scope of your, responsibility, but I am concerned about that. Because on the one hand, I would like to slow down all the streets as much as possible. But if we slow down Harrison, where does that traffic go? Like, for example, Grover, really wide street with very little traffic, and I can just see people zooming over there and heading down there at 40, 45 miles an hour. And how do we make sure that that is not,
Well, some of those same streets are the Bike Boulevard sections, and you could traffic calm some of those. You already have it at Hodge, so it's not, that unusual. We did not, you would have to build a pretty robust traffic model to gauge the diversion, but it's only 14,000. It's not like it's 35,000,
So you would be
The
concerned
other
about the volume?
Good and bad, to go from Route 1 north to Montgomery and 206, there just aren't very many streets. Princeton has some really good roadway network and some really limited. Alexander stops at 206. Washington, Van Deventer stops at Wiggins. This goes all the way through. So it has a regional benefit in terms of connectivity that none of the other streets have. And you've got to go to Province Line Road, right? To get, and then River Road, just too far.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Right.
it's very odd that you cannot drive across Princeton very well, but there's a huge demand to do it.
Okay.
You won't attract more traffic, you know.
Okay, so two more kind of related questions / comments. At the section in front of the shopping center, you had presented the quick build option, which I love, and I think that we should, do while we're trying to figure everything else out. I'd love to see that implemented. And as kind of a side benefit of that, can we enhance the shrubs or trees or rain gardens or whatever that go in that divide that's already there that frankly is, kind of not that aesthetically pleasing or that functional in terms of what it does? Could that be a much denser?
Oh, it could be anything. It could be much more. We talked about that, but we were sort of, the advantage to us is if we don't change the footprint, there's a lot of cost that doesn't,
right.
But yeah, you could certainly do that on Route 1 in Lawrenceville, the business Route 1, south of Whitehead Road. First they did the road project, and then they got a separate streetscaping grant and did some stuff like that. So, the nice thing about an interim build is that's the new normal, and then you go from there.
Right.
You wouldn't want to go to 6 lanes and then down.
Right.
Right. So, and it gives you flexibility during, if you were to build the roundabouts as well, because there'd be a lot of construction staging to make that work.
Thank you.
No, sure.
Great. Thank you. There's a lot here to digest, which I haven't been able to do. We do also have the Pedestrian Bike Advisory Committee that would, like to will need to take a look at this as well. I see this as, obviously we do this in phases. The circles I know are very expensive to do, and I'd like to look further at the data, but in terms of being traffic calming, it sounds like that's an option. 4 of them close together, I mean, that, again, we'll take a look at that. But in the shorter term, the idea of having this interim build where you have a 2-way bike lane on the shopping center side, I kind of agree with David, and that may be something that we want to have as a final build, something, to kick around, but it just seems like it's logical because there's a lot of traffic on that side of the road. And I love protected bike lanes. I love the idea of a raised protected bike lane as a final build. But again, we need time to digest this. I'd like to talk with the Pedestrian Bike Advisory Committee more and just delve into more of the details and obviously see what the phasing would be. So I guess maybe the next steps will be work session and coming back with more questions and just letting us digest a little bit more of this information. There's a lot there.
Do a committee presentation. Was that? Oh, that was the traffic group, right? Infrastructure, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even seen, they're here tonight and they'll be able to see this from the tape, but it's, it's nice. It's good to get more input, from the group as well. So,
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, yeah.
Let's finish up on this side and we'll work our way down.
Thanks. Yeah, I asked all my questions as soon as they occurred to me, so I don't have any questions. But I just want to comment that I'm really happy with the plan overall. I think it's a great idea, as you said, to use Broadmead, to divert some of the traffic off of Harrison, the bike traffic. Right. We do have these parallel roadways that are so much less trafficy. I think we have to think about how to really make people understand that that's an option for them, and figure out how to publicize it. And then I just want to say, I fought really hard for a traffic signal at Rosedale and General Johnson. And I am so glad I lost that battle. Roundabouts are miraculous in terms of how they slow people down and move traffic better. They move traffic better than traffic signals. And I've seen it again and again and again. It's true at the University Place traffic circle. For those of you who go to the train station, if you remember what it was like at the end of Alexander, before they put that traffic circle in, that intersection was a nightmare, and the circle completely solved it. So, yeah, as many traffic, I'd like a traffic circle at every intersection in Princeton, and especially at my crossing where I'm a crossing
If you
guard.
want people to get on your side, say roundabout, don't say, because they think that traffic circle, the New Jersey, like the Pennington Circle. You don't want to get involved in that, so. But thank you, David, appreciate it. Mayor Frida?
Do we have any additional comments? Or?
Yeah, just brief. My colleagues have already pointed out there's a lot to digest here. I haven't had the opportunity to review, but expect there will also be opportunities for public comment, because I'd like to hear, especially those who will live in the neighborhood and that will be whether bike riders or pedestrians who will be making use of that corridor. So.
Right, remember, it's a corridor plan, but it's a series of individual concepts, and each one right now is just an image and dimensions. It would have to go through its own process, design, looking at impacts, drainage, and, you know, right away, utility poles, all that sort of thing. So this is a starting point for a dialogue to,
Thank you.
you know, to do each one of these individually.
Thank you. I thought the presentation was wonderful. It was well thought out, and I think it's a great start, and we certainly need to mitigate the traffic that is and will be through that entire corridor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, you're good.
So, Pete, a few things. I was involved with the bike mobility plan, which, you know, went on for years and years and years, and so I was we finally got it passed. I was a little bit concerned to hear from you tonight that you already feel it's no longer
Well,
valid.
I think that you just have to accept the things that have changed and adapt to those, is all. Yeah.
In all things in life.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'm concerned about, and I'm speaking as Leticia said she'd like to hear from people in that neighborhood. I am in the center of that neighborhood.
Right.
I thought that this was, the focus of this exercise was about the Harrison Street corridor, basically from Terhune to Nassau. And I really, the reason why I'm just a little bit concerned is that the presentation tonight went so far afield, and I feel like whenever we try to implement bike infrastructure, we become our own worst enemies, and we analyze every aspect and impact from, you know, one side of Princeton, 3 towns over, and, you know, there was a lot of discussion tonight about many things apart from those few blocks on Harrison, which was my understanding was supposed to be the focus of this. And I would like to keep that priority. I agree with my colleagues, Councilwoman Niedergang and Councilman Cohen, that roundabouts are an excellent solution. There is, as you pointed out, a tremendous amount of density that's going in a very small, concentrated space.
Yes.
That intersection, those 2 intersections there are critical, particularly the one at Terhune and Harrison. There will be traffic backed up in both directions if we don't prioritize that roundabout. And it is really a shame that with all of the residents coming in that area and all of the kids who will be biking to school, that there is no way for them to bike safely. And again, I'm speaking as a resident of that neighborhood with a child who has not been able to bike to school safely. So I just don't want us to lose sight of the critical need to focus on the roundabouts and the bike lanes right there where the density is going in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's a good segue, just to give you a little bit of understanding of where we are in terms of this report. So Jim and I, with council's support, submitted an application to the state for a grant to make improvements on Harrison Street between Nassau and Franklin. That would be the first phase. It was kind of the easiest lift in terms of the grant program, which requires that you have a buildable project within 2 years. So we should be hearing any day about whether we're getting the grant to do that project. So that's something we can advance. The interim improvements for the road diet in front of the shopping center, we've already been working with Public Works to see how we can implement that. The idea being that we'll get the design moving forward for the Valley and Terhune roundabouts at next year. That is how we're working it, so that we can put that in as our next grant application next year, and be able to expedite a design process and get that built very soon after the first portion, which is that Nassau to Franklin. So while we're having this overview of the whole corridor, we are prioritizing the area from Terhune to Nassau Street. Right now, looking at it as two distinct projects. And so we welcome the opportunity to come back and have work sessions about the design that's proposed for those sections.
And I just had one quick question.
And if I could add something. Also keep in mind that the Alice, as it's being developed, is making improvements to both Terhune and Harrison Street along its frontage, and the right turn lane from Harrison Street to Terhune is going away. It's going to be a bike lane, a separated bike lane. That was part of the planning approvals. So the interim improvements that we would make with DPW are going to tie into that bike lane. We also have, we are out to bid on Terhune Road improvements on the north side of Terhune Road, which include a bike lane on the north side, along with the traffic calming of intersection, raised intersection tables at Thanet Circle and the new connector road, which I understand is going to be called Magnolia Terrace. We also have a grant from NJDOT, and we're in design for Safe Streets to Transit program to finish all of and improve all of the sidewalks on Terhune all the way from North Harrison to Mount Lucas. So all of these moving parts are taking place at the same time, and so there's really a lot more connectivity to the Harrison Street improvements that aren't clear in this study because it wasn't part of what Baker was studying. But they are aware of all of the other interconnections that are taking place.
Thanks, Jim. Mia, and then Michelle.
Yeah, just, so some small part of this did come to INO, and I had the same feeling that you did, David, about the bifurcated lanes on the shopping center side. And Jim, I thought I remember either you or someone else, there was some issue with that, or wait, can you refresh?
I've got it. Our traffic safety officer does not think the idea of a two-way bike lane in front of the shopping center is a good idea. We'd really have to look very carefully at that because there are a lot of driveways in and out of the shopping center, and a lot of turning movements that we would be introducing some conflicts if we had a two-way bike lane. So we have kind of backed off and said that it should only be in the direction of traffic movements. We also want to be working with Edens as they look at what they're going to do for modifications within the shopping center, because if the destination is the shopping center, there's a lot of opportunity to create safer bike movements in the shopping center and not have to have cyclists heading south on Harrison Street in the northbound, facing the northbound traffic. You know, it's kind of frightening thinking about traveling south on a bike when someone's coming out of a shopping center and turning right to go northbound. That's a conflict waiting to happen. So we're not fans for the two-way. We'd like to look at improvements inside the shopping center and work with them to have southbound bicyclists there.
Right, and that diagram is a remnant of before that thought process came up, so, yeah. You know, I would think of it as the Lawrence Hopewell Trail. If you remember, there was a mile here, and there was a mile over there, and people said, oh, it's just a trail to nowhere, and suddenly, you go 15 miles. You have to take the path of least resistance. What you can do now, this one gets done, that one gets done, and then all of a sudden, the pieces start to connect together. And it does take a lot of patience, but ultimately, you can have a network, but it won't be, tomorrow.
In our lifetime?
Okay, we're going to try to wrap up. We've been on this for about an hour now. We're not making any decisions. We're not supposed to be, so
Yeah,
anyway.
I just had a quick question to Deanna's. You said, and I always like to hear about grant applications, and I know that you're really aggressive about finding grants, which is great. But I wasn't clear on what the Nassau to Franklin improvements would be, what we're looking at there.
So it builds upon the recommendations in Baker's report. Included in it is a center median. While Baker is looking at something that's raised, we, I think, in turn are looking at a vegetated median that could also do stormwater management. So it's a green infrastructure median rather than a hard surface. We're looking at lane narrowing, we're looking at pavement improvements
The high friction.
for not gripping, but
high
friction, thank
high
you.
friction surface.
Higher friction surfaces. We've been looking at the traffic signals to see about timing changes to benefit pedestrians, and then sidewalk improvements for pedestrians.
So bike infrastructure wouldn't be included because you have that on the bike mobility plan going down Linden, like running parallel to
Correct.
that area. You're not-
Parallel, yes.
Yeah,
Right,
there's a
we would be
parallel- yeah.
utilizing
Should be
a
like Bike
parallel
Boulevard.
system.
Yeah.
Yep.
So going down Franklin, which we have to look at, and then turning left to Linden after right. Okay.
Right.
All right. Just thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the report. Thanks for all
You're
your
welcome. I
feedback.
apologize for the lengthy discussion, but it just happens sometimes. Well, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on, next up on the agenda is a public hearing on ordinance 2024-36, an ordinance by the municipality of Princeton concerning solid waste and recycling and amending chapters 15 and 21 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. Would someone like to make a motion? Michelle, is there a second? Me, thank you very much. All right, so why don't we, I'm sorry?
I have, point of view. I have to start off in saying that as much as I'd like to move this forward tonight, I do feel it's necessary to share some concern that came up. Mark and I were on a recent Experience Princeton Zoom call, and someone brought up an issue that I really hadn't thought of, and that is that some of the retail establishments in town, not all, but some, including some of the services like banks, for instance, they close at 5 o'clock, not 6 o'clock. So I just want to bring it up to my colleagues, if that's something we want to consider, and if it's something that's not a substantive change, if we did want to change it, what we would need to do. So anyway, I just wanted to open that up for discussion and feedback, what you all think of. Again, I hate to belabor this. I'd really like to move it forward, but I do want to not create a real additional burden on staffing for some of our businesses.
Right, and let me just, before we get to comments on that call, some people even said 5:30 might be an acceptable in-between, because if you close at 5, it's not that you're, as an employee, not everyone is actually walking out the door at 5 o'clock, right? Usually you close your doors, you lock them up, and you're doing a certain number of things inside the establishment before everybody leaves. But it does make it, as Michelle said, difficult for some people to wait till 6 o'clock because nobody's, thank you.
Thank you. I was thinking of restaurants, and restaurants, they stay longer because there's cleanup and things that they have to do, whereas retailers, they're pretty much, they're out the door. So maybe a little bit of things. So anyway, I just wanted to open that up to discussion.
Okay, David was trying to.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. I guess with a question, it's my sense that most office-type uses tend to have custodians, custodial work done after hours. Like, they don't have the custodians emptying the waste baskets and vacuuming when they're open. So I would think that it would be just as easy for the custodial staff to put out the trash at the appropriate time rather than...
Good, very, very good point. Hadn't thought of that either. So that's a good consideration.
Yeah, for the custodial staff, that would be more of like an office-type building.
Well, right, Michelle mentioned banks. I'm not sure who's closing at 5 who wouldn't have custodial staff after hours. Maybe there's somebody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, having worked in a retail store for many years, you don't usually wait till after you close you're usually cleaning things and keeping things tidy throughout the day. So I don't know how many are. Anyway, it's just
when I
worth
worked
noting.
as a janitor in high school, I was working outside of business hours.
All good. I don't really mean to debate it. Anyway, any other comments? Why don't we, so you can comment on that specific issue, or you can comment on anything having to do with this ordinance whatsoever. Eve?
Yeah, I had a comment on that issue. I don't know if the ordinance could, Lisa, you're gonna look at me and go, no, we can't do that. I don't know if the ordinance can say that, trash needs to be put out. If you close at 5, you can put your trash out no, can't do that. Okay, so, all right, I'll abandon that. I think, the concern that was brought up is something we need to pay attention to. I mean, if we could split the difference at 5:30, that would be great. I don't know how well that would go over, but, if you think about a little retail store like Mandalay or something like that, I don't think they have, janitorial services coming in and they're going to be finishing up and, Anyway, I had another issue to bring up for discussion. So this
could we just, I wanted to comment
You
on
wanna
that
address-
issue if we're
okay,
gonna,
I'll wait.
I just want to say, as a general principle, to change an ordinance that's been introduced based on anecdotal, suggestion that several people on a Zoom call had an issue with something, from my perspective, is not really, and I understand, Michelle, you felt like you had to bring that up, but, we can't satisfy everyone. How many people compared to, we're 2 people on the call as opposed to 100 people who are well served by what was originally introduced? And do we have some data or some basis to support the original recommendations that were part of this ordinance? You know, and if so, then why would we change it based on, you know, several people on a Zoom call? You know, I mean, like, we don't generally when we introduce an ordinance, it's because a lot of thought has gone into it. There's been input, outreach, and, you know, but if this was very significant, you know, then I think we would need to flesh that out about why this is so, these few people on this call were so important that we should change the entire ordinance. That's just my, and I'm willing to, but that's just my feeling about that. Like, if we were to go down that route with everything we introduce, I'm not sure we'd ever move forward.
I mean, that's, you know, that's the idea, though, too, when you put something out and you introduce it, that you have a hearing and you get feedback, and this was, you know, part of the
Are those
process.
people here? I don't see them.
They're not here.
Okay, so it seems like maybe it wasn't so urgent for them.
I would just jump in and say I'd be concerned that there isn't, Isaac is here, I get it, representing Experience Princeton, but there are no business owners, no restaurant owners, there's nobody here in the room. I think a couple people, well, at least one on Zoom. But I am worried that has our outreach been significant enough that people understand what we're about to do with this ordinance? I don't know that we've achieved the outreach we had hoped we would achieve, to be honest. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm still concerned about a 6 a.m. start to pick up trash in the central business district, because there are a lot of people that live in the CBD. Anyway, those are my concerns. But
I would defer to you. I mean, Mark and Michelle are the liaisons to the SID. Isaac is here. If there hasn't, you know, I think if we need to, maybe we needed another work session. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, remember, too, we originally started at 6 a.m., so, you know, we wanted to make it more palatable for the businesses. We have a committee that is looking at this. We need to get the streets clean. I'm anxious, we're all anxious to move something forward. I didn't want to hold this up, but I really felt obligated to share that comment. But if we feel that we're ready, let's go ahead. I've moved it, and we have a second, so.
yeah, Eve.
So I had some issues about this last week, which are not 100% resolved for me. And you might say I'm not sure that these are important, but I want to bring them to everyone's attention. So right now we have a time established for pickup in the central business district, a new time, which would be 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. That is a change in our current ordinance. The way the ordinance reads now, we then have a pickup for residential outside the central business district from 7 a.m., which is unchanged, to 6 p.m., which is a couple of hours later. For commercial and multifamily residential units outside the central business district, the pickup hours are 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then in Section 4, Chapter 21, which is kind of a different part of the ordinance, we have a 7 p.m. end time for pickup for everybody, for pickup, transport, everything having to do with garbage. So again, I'm not sure how important this is, but it seems unnecessarily complex to have these 4 different standards of what the hours are. And I think it would be easier if we were moving forward tonight to have a time for the central business district and then a time for everyone else. And we just have 2 very simple, easy, everybody can understand it. I think, though, that would require, for my emails back and forth with Lisa, enough changes that we could not move forward tonight. So again, in the scheme of things, how important is it? Maybe not very, but it just simplifies things in a way that I find appealing. And I just wanted to at least bring it up for everyone to hear so that if we do decide to ignore it and move forward, we do so knowing that we have this complicated schema of all different times. And so that's what I wanted to bring up.
Eve, those are great catches, and I think I would think that that's more of just an oversight on our part that we missed it, and that we could either try to put this off and correct it and do it all at once, or we move ahead with this and we come back and correct those sections later. There's a number of options, but it doesn't make sense to say that my single-family house, I can have the garbage picked up till 6, but David, who lives half a block down and has 4 units in his building, they have to have it by 4 o'clock. I mean, that literally, you could have 2 different times on the same block. So that is not logical. So,
Yeah. Well, can I ask a question about that, which is, I mean, I think there was a strong rationale. I think the history that led to this was that the end time was 4 o'clock, and then somebody made the point that people work, and for them to get their can off the street by 4 o'clock, if they work until 5, so we extended that until.
This is simply, sorry, I may not have been clear. This is simply the hours that trash is allowed to be collected by the professionals. Has nothing to do with when you, as a homeowner or commercial entity, at least
Get
the
can
concerns
off.
that I brought up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think that there can be a rationale because single-family residences, it's municipal pickup. And it's private contractors for the multifamily residential. So, I think we want to give our municipal hauler the amount of time that they need to cover the town. And they do often come, I think, late in the day. So, but I'm not hearing anyone complain about the 4 p.m. So, but I sort of zoned out for a second about the 7 p.m. thing. What was that? Could you say that again?
So there is a section 4, chapter 21-2 at the very end of the ordinance, which is the overall kind of ordinance about when solid waste can be collected. It says the collection, transportation, or disposal of all types of solid waste, recycles, and other refuse by persons engaged in the business of scavenging or solid waste or recycling collection, whether private or municipal, at any time on Sundays or other than between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. on all other days. So basically, it's setting up that the earliest time you can be involved in anything to do with this is 6 a.m. and the latest is 7 p.m. But again, I don't know how important this is. It just doesn't adhere to any of the other rules and regulations, to any of the other things. And I just, in my mind, since we're here doing this, I would reconcile, but I can't argue that it is the most important thing or we should hold things up necessarily.
Can we hear from staff?
Yeah, and Lisa may need to opine on this. That section is state regulation, right? According to the noise ordinance, that's 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. I thought I understood that we really couldn't edit that.
That is under the noise ordinance, so it just prohibits anyone from collecting solid waste outside of the times that are permitted, so 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. But it is separate from the solid waste provisions under Chapter 15. So they're supposed to be read together, and they're really not in conflict. One, the noise ordinance's goal is to ensure that the noise is at a certain level at certain times. And this is a very common provision. It could be amended, but the issue is that these are the outer limits. So I don't think you want to change this in your noise ordinance. The other provision under Chapter 15, that's really addressing different type of behavior, which is, the actual core solid waste collection and the activities of the private contractor. So they address different behavior, although they kind of overlap. They are different provisions. So I don't see a problem legally with them. I understand what you're saying. When you see all these different times, it could be very confusing. But and I don't think that the state regulates this. There might just be, it might be from Wayne, the consultant, Wayne DeFeo. He may have said in some of our discussions that this is something that you don't necessarily want to touch from a noise and nuisance perspective. But so it's a separate issue.
And it does allow our hauler, if they're running late or anybody's hauler, that they can still work and not be subject to a summons for a violation of our noise ordinance.
It also extends to recycling, which none of the other provisions do. That's provided by the county, so it is yet another hauler. I mean, it doesn't seem crazy to me to have a different rule for them.
Michelle?
I just didn't want to lose sight of the fact that we were really amending this with existing ordinance to solve a problem in the CBD.
Correct.
To get the trash bins off the street.
Yep.
And, you know, I would really like to see us move this forward. As I said before, I felt obligated to share the feedback that we heard, but I'm still ready to stand by my motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Leighton?
I agree with Michelle. We went through this last month, and we asked for the changes that have been made. We want the trash picked up between 6 and 10, and we didn't like the 6 a.m. for the rest of the town, and we changed it to 7. Let's do this. I mean, we need cleanliness in the central business district, and this does that. I think we got what we asked for, and I think we should move it.
Thank you. Any other comments up here? Yeah, we're going to have public comment now. Isaac, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to weigh in, not officially taking a position on behalf of Experience Princeton, but sharing information that's come up as we've tracked this issue over the last 2 years, that we did do a survey of businesses in the Central Business District, asking them about their trash pickups and recycling and the times that it commonly happened at. One of our volunteers actually charted all of that data day by day with hours. And based on the respondents, there were 38 of them that the proposed ordinance would conform to the schedules that the businesses largely said work for them. So we do have some data to back that up. And I want to reiterate and clarify on the Experience Princeton virtual meetup on Thursday, there was discussion, Thursday last week, there was discussion about the timing of 5 p.m. closing business, but the follow-up to that was that there may be some latitude or flexibility, both on the side of the business, but also on the enforcement. And the last piece of information I'd like to share with you is that I have been tracking and monitoring this issue. We've formed what we informally call the Trash Working Group, where we have 4 members of it, volunteers, but they actually already have provided valuable feedback. We've created info sheets that we're prepared to circulate with businesses and owners in the Central Business District, and we already have a release on our website about this issue. So, thank you.
Thanks, Isaac.
Thank you, Isaac.
Is there anybody on Zoom that wants to comment on this ordinance before we vote on it? Okay. I'll close the public hearing, and could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's jump to resolutions. 24323, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing an increase of $15,000 to the not-to-exceed amount for the professional services agreement with Prusi, McDermott, Mastro and Murphy, PC, for Labor Council legal services for a new not-to-exceed amount of $45,000. Is there a motion on that? Thank you, Leighton. David's got the second. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 24324, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the submission of an award extension request for the Cherry Hill Road Shared Use Pathway Bikeways Project 223-bike-00015 to the New Jersey Department of Transportation. Eve's got the motion, Michelle's got the second. Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24325, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing the extension of a contract with Eastern Armored Services, Inc. for 2025-2026 armored car services for an amount not to exceed $243,072. Is there a motion on that? Thank you, Leighton. Is there a second? Thank you, David. Questions or comments? Eve?
I think this was on our last agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, can someone remind me why we pulled it?
Right,
Was it-
people were concerned that the only money being transferred was money collected from our meters. But a study was done within our municipal buildings, and there are amounts of money over $1 million being transported by the Armored Car Company to banks on a regular basis. And obviously, those amounts of money are not something we're throwing in the back of a municipal vehicle and having an employee take to a bank. So once further research was done by the staff, it was quite apparent that there is a significant need for these services.
Perfect. Okay. I was having a deja vu. It's like, wait, did we do this
Sorry,
already?
I think we had a little disconnect in that we did the research, but we didn't get the research out to everybody.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
thank you for
thank
asking.
you.
Thank you for sharing that research.
Yeah, well, information is helpful when it's shared, so. All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24326, resolution of the Mayor and Council of the Municipality of Princeton approving police promotions for 2024. Thank you, Leticia. Is there a second? Michelle? Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24327, resolution of the Mayor and Council of the Municipality of Princeton determining the form and other details of $32,603,000 general obligation bonds, Series 2024, consisting of $29,903,000 general improvement bonds, Series 2024A, and $2,700,000 redevelopment area bonds, Series 2024B, of Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, and providing for their sale. Is there thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? Thank you, David. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24328, resolution of the Mayor and Council of the Municipality of Princeton determining the form and other details of $7,935,000 general improvement bonds, Series 2024C, federally taxable, of Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, and providing for their sale. Is there a motion on that? Thank you, Eve. Leighton's got the second. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
24329, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton Council of the Municipality of Princeton providing for the combination of certain issues of general improvement bonds, Series 2024A of Princeton in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, into a single issue of bonds aggregating $29,903,000 in the principal amount. Thank you, David. Mia's got the second. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda has 1, 2, 4 items. If everybody's fine with them staying there, somebody could move them in block. Thank you, Mia. Eve's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Somebody named David have a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Eve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you. Have a great evening. You get a proclamation and you still hang out.